There's never been a more stressful start to a school year for music teachers than probably this one. We have all the restrictions on what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do, whether you're online, whether you're working on a cart, whether you've even got classroom, whether you've even got instruments. It has never been so stressful for the start of a school year. So how can we look after ourselves as educators, and how can you protect yourself from burnout and stress? Hi, I'm Rachel Hardman, and this is Passionate About Music Education, and I am truly passionate about helping you find healthy ways to cope with being a music teacher. And that's not because you're no good at it or any of us are no good at it. It's because our job is so stressful and so busy all the time. We have so many children we're teaching. We generally give up lunchtimes and after schools and before schools, and we're planning music, and we actually have to practice as well, particularly if you're accompanying soloists. So actually, people don't really understand the pressures that music and performing arts teachers are under. To even think about trying to teach band or choir virtually with our students, if you have a band program with beginner students, like teaching 50 beginners online where you can't help them or show them, is requiring so many wonderful music educators to spend hours and hours and hours researching and finding resources. And you can see this all the time on online forums and discussion groups. So I'm here to tell you that if you are trying to keep passionate about education, music, and teaching children music, and struggling with burnout and stress, self-care is the way forward. And there really isn't enough talk about this in education. I'm really passionate about helping music educators because I've been teaching for nearly 25 years, and I will be honest, and I've had many times when I've been really stressed and not known how to unstress. I'll go to sleep and it takes ages to go to sleep at night, and then you're awake first thing in the morning and you're instantly thinking about work, and you go, this is not healthy. I should be able to have some way of turning this off. It's like consuming me all the time, and it's not being ineffective. It's actually just because you've kind of wired yourself into this way for a while now. So it becomes a habit. So how do we break that, and how can we find better strategies? And that's what we're talking about in this video. And I'm going to talk about strategies that I actually use and I've been using over the last week. Like yourself, there's lots of challenges going on at the moment. We had a hurricane, and we've got the pandemic, and we've got equipment that hasn't arrived, and we haven't got class lists, and every day something's changing in terms of what we are allowed and not allowed to do in terms of teaching and how we bring students into the school. Last week was very stressful. I was going back into work, and there was so much out of my control that I could feel myself getting stressed. So I was having to really dig deep into the techniques I've been learning. I had to keep getting up and having breaks and time to go out in the fresh air and spend 5 minutes outside of my fluorescent light classroom and standing outside and taking some breaths, using some meditation, just before I started a new task, going, who am I doing this for? Who needs my A game? What do I need to focus on? Turning the email off when I'm doing curriculum planning and lesson planning, and just giving myself some space. But more importantly, when I had the time and came out of work, it was doing free self-care activities for myself. If you're like me, you maybe have been taught that actually having self-care and putting yourself above others is selfish. And for many years, I believed that I had to do my job really well, I had to look after my family really well, had to look after everybody else really well. And when I was at my most stress was probably when I needed to self-care the most, and I really wasn't doing it. And one of the other things that I was really terrible at was really looking after my physical well-being and getting enough sleep and eating healthily and doing exercise. And I would always put it down to having Crohn's, and it's just I get tired because of Crohn's, and also because teaching stressful in term time. That's what we've all been told. And actually, this is really bad messages, and messages that I've had to really unpick myself to be a healthier version of myself. And I hope the pain that I've gone through and the research and the struggles that I've gone through to find solutions really do help you. I'm going to talk to you some action points, and I hope these give you some stepping stones for having a healthier you, because if you're here, that means you care about education, you care about music, and you care about teaching children, and you want answers. And I hope I can help provide some answers today. So action point 1, I'd like you to take a piece of paper, and on your piece of paper, write 4 squares or 4 columns. And in the first one, write physical. In the second one, intellectual. The third one, emotional. And the fourth one, spiritual or social. which stands for PIES, physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And I want you to take 5 or 10 minutes of really thinking about those words and what you do on a fairly consistent weekly basis in those areas. So you might be much better at this than me. You might have in your physical column that you go to yoga 4 times a week, or you do CrossFit or cycling, but you might find that in the intellectual area you're not growing, you're not learning new skills because you're too busy or too tired, which is fine, because that might be the area that you need to look at. Or it might be that you're not having enough time with social or spiritual, or getting out in nature and being with friends and family, because again, it's that work-life balance, or because we've all been locked down for so long. So take some time to look at those 4 areas, and you'll find that you're probably, like most people, have strengths in 1 or 2, and then in the other columns they're quite empty. And those are the columns that you need to focus on, because for us as humans to feel personal growth and to feel excited and to feel energized and motivated, we need to have a balance across the 4. And really, when I was looking at self-care, for me it really was that physical aspect. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I wasn't eating as healthily as I like, because like most music teachers, we're kind of eating sandwiches on the go, we're rehearsing at the same time, you sort of snack and graze through the day when you can, because you know you're not going to have that proper half an hour to sit down. And this ongoing year upon year is not healthy. And actually, you know, then you come home and you're exhausted, so you don't make time to go and do exercise. You can put that kind of stuff off. And now it's a priority, and it's not like I've suddenly become some crazy sports fanatic, because that's just not me. But I am getting out and walking, and then do schoolwork or planning, or you know, whatever else I need to do for my job, because I have that 20 minutes. Not only do I get the physical well-being, I also get emotional, in terms of I get out in the fresh air and I get space and I get to see nature, I get the spiritual connection, and I get a chance for me to just de-stack some of that stress, which is really helpful. And what I'm saying for action point 2 is, whatever is missing, make that a priority for the next 21 days. And the reason I say 21 days is because there's research that once you do something for 21 days, you are more likely to keep it as part of your routine. So for instance, if you add meditation at some point during the day, of 10-minute, 5-minute meditation, quiet time, if you do that consistently every day for 21 days, it will become part of your habits. It will become part of the norm for you. And you will find that it's much more effective after you've done it for 21 days, because you'll start to see the benefit of it. Action point 3, try to find 3 times a day to do your PIES. These are your self-care. So if it might be to go to for a walk, or take the dog out, or to go and make a phone call with somebody who's positive in your life, you know, a positive family member or friend. It might be to paint your nails, or have a bubble bath, or read, or learn something new, or watch a motivational video, watch something on YouTube, listen to music, go and practice your piano or instrument for fun as opposed to for work. Whatever those small self-care activities are, try to do 3 for you that come off that PIES list, because that is the way that we can make time for ourselves, reconnect with ourselves, and also just have a bit of space from the busyness of life. And I know you're going to say, how am I going to find time for free activities? Well, you can, because what I'm asking or suggesting is that you find time to do things for like 10-15 minutes. So turn off social media, turn off Netflix, turn off those email notifications, stop having them bounce onto your watches at like 10 o'clock at night. None of this is healthy for us. We're not meant to keep reading emails, work emails at 10 o'clock at night, because it makes our brain kick back in, and then we start thinking about it and we don't have good sleep. So we can find the time, we just have to prioritize, which, if you're like me, was really hard to unprogram, because during term time you were led to believe by your colleagues, your peers, when you were training as a teacher, and in your first few years, this was normal, this was just accepted of teaching. And of course we do a good job for our students, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, But if we're not healthy and if we're not well, and we're not looking after ourselves, we're no good for anybody else. And that's the message that we need to now start passing to teachers and to you guys. And I hope that really helps you, because it's okay to have some time for yourself during the working week. It is not selfish. And you find that once you've had that break for yourself and done those self-care, that when you come back to do any schoolwork that you might need to do in the evening, you actually come back to it refreshed rather than sitting in front of the computer completely depleted. And my last action point for you in terms of self-care is really to be aware of mindset. And it's so easy in education to be pulled into all that negative conversation. How many times have you heard about budgets being cut, or whether in the UK about Ofsted, or we're not allowed to do this, or we can't give you this, and there's sort of, the arts aren't valued, or we can't make space for the arts, we can't give you funding. There's always a lot of that sort of negativity that we're surrounded by, which if you've been teaching a long time, like myself, you do end up absorbing and not realizing that you've kind of got that within your own language. And it's that fighting for the department, battling for music and the arts to be valued. It's fighting for the children's right to have music. It is of course really important that we fight for the department, but the problem is the word fight is such a negative, aggressive word that we bring it into our body, and it also zaps us of our energy because it's such a negative mindset. And yes, it takes time to change that and to change it to advocating for the art, or enthusiastically champion the arts, which gives a very different idea. And I know that we're still doing the same thing, but the mindset and the language that's going on in your head and the vocabulary you use and the vocabulary you write makes such a difference to self-care and how you feel and mindset. I was thinking about the word, I hate attending boring meetings, or I hate attending Zoom meetings. And we've all been there, and it's like you sit there and you go, gosh, this could have been just sent in an email and 2 hours later. And if you change the word to hate, or this is rather bothersome, this meeting, or I could well do without it, suddenly it takes out quite a lot of the aggression of the word hate. And it was rather bothersome, wasn't it? Or it wasn't rather delightful, was it, this meeting? And I know it sounds really silly, but you suddenly start smiling, and it kind of takes away the negativity, and it takes it out of you, and it gives you that space to feel better. So again, 21 days, really monitor your mindset and be kind to yourself. If you had a bad day with Zoom, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't give yourself negative self-talk. Don't be unkind to yourself. Think about how you're talking to yourself. So if you're talking negative language to yourself, you're actually also bringing on the stress and the burnout, because it's easy for us to criticize ourselves. Because again, we're musicians, we're reflectors, we want to improve all the time. We're constantly looking at how we can improve ourselves as musicians, and we are also doing that as educators. And although that's very admirable, we also have to be kind about our language to ourselves, and and be really aware that we are making progress. Of course you're making progress. The fact you've gone from teaching in a classroom to now teaching online and still keeping your music program going with no training and no time to do it is a credit. It's a credit to you. You're an amazing teacher, and you're doing amazing things for students, and you're sharing your love for music with others, and that's a gift. And so whatever goes wrong during the day, be kind to yourself. Reflect from it, but don't beat yourself up. Don't be so negative to yourself, because if you're not careful, these are the areas that bring us into stress and burnout. And I know, because I've been there and I've done this, and I've really had to reflect and dig deep, and I really wouldn't want anybody else to go through the same pain. I hope those action points give you a starting point to really look at how amazing you are. We all need to be a little bit more kind to ourselves, to each other, and be supportive, because what we're being asked to do at this moment in time is so incredibly difficult. So I hope this has helped. Please feel free to check out some more of the videos on this channel where I talk about all the different ways that you can help reduce stress in music teaching and teaching in general. And I hope you found this helpful. Please, of course, leave a comment or like below, subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Remember, you're awesome. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I'm Rachel Hardman, and this is Passionate About Music Education.